I played Squad Busters a lot on its global release, and I enjoyed playing the game. It had a lot of characters to choose from with their own abilities, maps, and modes that added difference to matches and a satisfying progression system. However, today, I rarely ever play the game. After only a month of playing, the game feels stagnant and frustrating to play. And for a game that has some unique aspects to gameplay and a fulfilling progression system, Squad Busters should be a big hit, and yet it isn't. For a game that has massively popular IP behind it, it's failing to gather a large sustainable player base, and at this rate, it is likely to become Supercell's second smallest game, only above Boom Beach. So how did this happen, and how could Squad Busters turn into the game the developers want it to be? Let's start with problems facing Squad Busters before its global release. Firstly, there was the death of Clash Mini, an auto chess game set in the Clash universe that set out to make a simpler alternative to the more complex games in the genre. However, after several reworks to its progression system, Supercell ultimately decided to kill the game because of the lack of a meta progression system, aka what the player was getting out of playing the main gameplay loop multiple times. Shortly after, we got the soft launch of Squad Busters, and then not even a month later, Supercell announced the game would be going global. It left a weird taste in many players' mouths seeing Squad Busters go global with only some soft launch testing, while Clash Mini was killed after over 2 years in development. And even before going global, many players who participated in the soft launch pointed out several big issues with the game that still aren't addressed today. The first and biggest issue of Squad Busters were mega units and keys. Mega units were not seen as a huge issue because aside from being simply too overpowered, the idea of being able to come back from a loss by getting a mega unit is a good concept, and after a nerf to the mega units, they seemed to be in a near balanced position. Of course, more mega units have been added, and the developers will need to make sure that new megas are not broken for the game to be in a more balanced state. Now we can finally talk about Squad Busters' biggest present issue, keys. Keys are items that you can use shortly after a match starts with a cooldown between uses, and in short, they allow you to get extra characters in your squad without having to farm gold. This is a huge issue currently, as players have to pay gold to get keys or get them from other sources like pinatas. This would be like the equivalent to using an item that gives extra troops in a Clash of Clans raid, getting more health in a Brawl Stars match, or suddenly receiving extra elixir in Clash Royale. The pay-to-win key system received heavy backlash in soft launch and global launch, and so far the developers of Squad Busters have only said that they are working on a fix. So depending on what they do with keys and how soon the fix arrives, that will cause a big impact on the game as a whole. Another problem plaguing Squad Busters from the start was endgame progression. For all of soft launch and the entire first season of the game, whales who maxed out an account couldn't actually do anything to progress.
This is what happens. Chest skipped. All characters are max level, and I don't get anything!
This lack of an endgame progression system gave no incentive for endgame players to keep grinding the game except to complete quests and push in trophies, which didn't really give any rewards either. It wasn't until 2 days into the second season that a proper endgame system was put into place, and even now it gives 23% less portal energy than those who still get units to fuse from chests, not counting portal energy from unfinished quests. Yet another problem with the progression system of Squad Busters is the character unlock rate. In Squad Busters, there's a 1% chance of unlocking a character, and a new character is guaranteed after 100 chests are opened without getting one. The problem with this is that almost no one can unlock every new rare and epic character without buying them from the shop. You see, the chest system in the game gives a set number of common, rare, and epic chests on a cycle of 60 in order to make sure that everyone gets roughly the same number of commons, rares, and epics as everyone else. 60% of boxes are common, 30% are rare, and 10% are epic, meaning that common characters will be unlocked and maxed the fastest, and rare and epic units will be unlocked and maxed slower. Because of this, it's much more likely for players to unlock every common unit before getting rare or epic ones, as over 50% of all chests contain commons, and guaranteed chest unlocks have a 60% chance of giving a common unit if all common units are not unlocked already. Now, unlocking characters shouldn't feel like a big issue. In fact, Brawl Stars and Clash Royale both require the player to unlock brawlers and cards in order to use them. The main difference is that Brawl Stars and Clash Royale don't force you to include things you don't have, unlike Squad Busters. In Squad Busters, you are given a set roster of characters for the match containing 5 random commons, rares, and epics from your current world and all worlds before. This can include characters you haven't unlocked yet, and upon opening a chest and having one of these characters characters as an option, it won't allow you to pick it. This limits your options from 3 to 2 in what you can add to your squad and gives a significant disadvantage to you if it keeps you from fusing units. This would be equivalent to Clash Royale making you use a locked card in your deck but not allowing you to play it in-game. It creates a lot of frustration considering that Squad Busters has such a low unlock rate and buying characters from the shop can cost up to a month's worth of gold for a free-to-play player. However, this problem could easily be solved if Squad Busters adopted a Brawl Stars or Clash Royale approach to preparing for a match. Letting the player pick their starting lineup would be the huge improvement. In Squad Busters, picking units matters much more than any other decision you can make inside of a match. Not going for fusions early on creates a huge problem later as you won't be able to get enough gold to buy chests. Not having a speedster makes it impossible to keep yourself safe from getting ambushed, and not having healers makes it difficult to keep characters healthy for late game PvP interactions. For most of a match, all you will do is fight mobs that spawn around the map and build up a good squad that can survive later on. And having a full roster of characters really matters, yet my roster will often leave out all speedsters or tanks or healers, which makes that match much more difficult. Having a random roster is like not being able to pick which brawler you're gonna play next in Brawl Stars, getting one of say 20 pre-made armies in Clash of Clans assigned to you when you attack a base, or having to play one of several pre-made decks in Clash Royale. Oh wait, that happened. It's called the Classic Decks Challenge, and it sucked.
I have nothing for this. I have nothing for this. Is this another 100-0 matchup? What?
Now, the last direct gameplay issue has to be modifiers. Granted, I actually like modifiers. They change the game a bit so that it doesn't seem completely identical every single match, but most modifiers don't change the game enough to make it feel different every single match. This often makes them feel repetitive. The two that I would say make Squad Busters feel different are doppelgangers and one-coin chests, which put more priority on managing which units you have and what you want going into the late game, rather than always going for fusions and farming resources. And it's really fun to have a massive squad in the final minute just to go around and fight everyone. However, Doppelgangers specifically proves to be a problematic modifier. In Doppelgangers, getting an otherwise middle-of-the-road character like Goblin can actually be game-changing, which means not having the Goblin in your roster can be the deciding factor of whether you win or lose before you've even played out the match. Once again, this could be easily solved in a number of ways. Having different modifiers to choose from in the menu before entering a match could allow players to pick the one they enjoy more. Another option is to make every player play the same roster of characters each match. This would even out the playing field for every modifier and would only fall short because of Squad Busters' incredibly low character unlock rates, causing some players to not have some of the characters. Now personally, I would say allowing players to select their own roster and then choose between say a rotating set of any 3 modifiers at any time would probably be the way I'd go about solving most of these issues, since it would give players the most freedom for what they want to play, and it would add in quite a bit of variety. Though I could see many people just using the meta of Goblin Trader and Doppelgangers to try and grind out a lot of trophies, and I would see it getting quite competitive. And with all of these issues addressed, we can get into the deepest issue of the game. And for this, we'll need to look at how the gameplay loop appears to be designed. The player spawns on a map with a random roster of characters and a random selection of 3 of those characters to start out with. They defeat random mobs from different Supercell games and buy chests. They can choose from one of 3 random characters that appear in a chest, or they can use a reroll dice to get a new set of 3 characters to choose from. If they get 3 of the same unit, that unit will fuse, becoming stronger and also lowering the price of chests. They can use keys to get extra characters without having to spend gold, and if they are doing poorly, they have a chance of getting a mega unit which can help them catch back up and get better rewards. After the match is done, they will get a chest, and depending on their placement, they will get a certain number of taps, which can increase the number of characters they get from said chest. These characters can be used to upgrade their existing characters and unlock new abilities for them, which they can then use in future matches. This progression loop repeats until all units are maxed out, at which point they will get portal energy instead. From this perspective, Squad Busters seems to be a highly casual and lighthearted game targeted at players that enjoy a more random experience and enjoy the overall progression arc of Squad Busters. However, I left out a crucial detail that changes this perspective completely: competition. Players are spawned into a match with 9 other players to compete against. Players are rewarded based on how well they do in comparison to their opponents. Players in the top 5 will gain a win streak that will further increase the number of taps they received per chest. However, this win streak is lost once they get 6th place or lower. All of a sudden, Squad Busters has gained a new competitive aspect that is tied to overall progression, and now it can be played competitively by any player who wants to max the game quicker. Except it can't. The way the game is designed, players with superior skill will only be able to get so much farther than those who lack it, simply because of the way Squad Busters is designed. To compare it to other Supercell games, how competitive would Brawl Stars be if every match you played Showdown with a random brawler, random map, and a random modifier? How competitive would Clash of Clans be if every raid you were given one of many preset troop loadouts and a single base to attack, no finding another opponent, and no exiting? And let's face it, Clash of Clans and Clash Royale aren't in the most competitive states, but I'd assume you wouldn't want to have your deck chosen for you in Clash Royale by, say, the deck maker. Now take those games and refunnel 60% of all production in those games specifically to winning matches or destroying a player's base. That is the present gameplay stance of Squad Busters right now. Already imagining these other games with these changes looks like a huge mistake because it completely removes a ton of the competitive aspects. You simply can't have such a competitive progression loop tied to the random aspects that Squad Busters employs. Now add in keys, mega units, character locks, the things that players can use to gain a competitive advantage, and all of a sudden you have a broken gameplay loop that can't be enjoyed by casual players or competitive players. Fundamentally, Squad Busters still needs to decide what it wants to be as a game: a competitive player versus environment battle royale, or a casual play to progress. If it wants to be a competitive game, removing a lot of the randomness within the game and giving the player more choice is the way to go. This would also allow Squad Busters to keep events that require players to grind for rewards, as it would have a competitive player base to begin with. If Squad Busters wants a more casual route, it should disconnect a lot of its progression from placing highly in matches and more on completionist and participation quests. The developers would also need to rethink a lot of their events, as currently having events that require players to play hours a day won't allow a passive and casual community to enjoy the game. Either way, the Squad Busters developers need to make a major shift with what they want to do with the game, and with that I'll leave with one more suggestion. Maybe don't rush a game's global release after only a few beta tests. Okay, thank you for watching all the way to the end. Maybe I'll catch you in another video. I'll see you next time.